Welcome back to Transformers Rescue Bots Academy Season 2. Before we get into this review, I guess I have a few things I should clarify. First of all, this obviously isn't the review for the Empty City like I mentioned in my previous video. I was really hoping that by the time I finished doing reviews for all of the first 26 episodes of Season 2 that Netflix has up on their service, they would have added the remaining 26 of the last half of the season. But unfortunately, they have not. But fortunately for you, I recently discovered that one of the channels of my cable provider does have new episodes airing every week. But again, unfortunately, I guess I discovered it a little bit too late to catch the episode The Empty City. But luckily, most of the episodes that I have caught so far are fairly innocuous and don't really need to be viewed in a particular order, save for one or two. Now, while I could watch and use the footage of the existing copies of some of the other episodes that have already aired, the quality on the resolution of those ones are so terrible, I just can't bring myself to use it. I mean, if you watched any of my videos, I always try to use and deliver the best quality I can. In fact, I'm working on a couple videos about that. One about my current recording setup and how I plan to upgrade it. And another video on how you can take your own Transformers or other media and upgrade it to a higher resolution, and whether it's worth it or not. But I'm getting off track. Speaking of tracks, no, not that tracks. What I'm saying is that until Treehouse loops back around, loops back around. I didn't even mean to make that pun. But anyways, until they loop back around and start airing the earlier episodes of the first half of Season 2, like The Empty City, I'm just going to present the reviews of the episodes that I already have in the order that I think they make the most sense. So, as I alluded to a minute ago, let's get back on track with this video review and take a look at the Rescue Bots Academy Season 2 episode, Make Tracks. In this episode, Hotshot tries to teach Wedge how to drive fast using his new sports car mode, but it seems that Hotshot has a thing to learn himself when it comes to teaching others. As we begin this episode, Hotshot and Wedge are racing to their latest rescue mission, which seems to be a human who is somehow stuck dangling by his waist from a broken bridge. Really, the showrunners must be running out of ideas for rescues. Couldn't the guy just climb up by himself? Also, Hotshot's hard foam seems to defy physics. I mean, shouldn't it have spilled down into the river instead of jumping across the gap in order to fill it? Meanwhile, Wedge is kinda depressed for not making that jump.
I guess I just wasn't quick enough, but good job, Hotshot.
You're a sports car now, Wedge. Shouldn't you be faster than Hotshot, who is only an ATV? You just gotta put the pedal to the metal. Back at the academy, the recruits are finishing a lesson on vehicle maintenance with Bumblebee, and they all have these things on their desks, but they never mention what they are or what they're for. They do say,
"Remember, look after your spark, and
your spark will look after you."
Well, these obviously aren't their own sparks. So do these devices have something to do with their sparks? Or are these actually some kind of real car component that I don't recognize? They do kind of look like spark plugs. Maybe they could be like Cybertronian spark plugs for their actual sparks. Anyways, Wedge seems really down on himself for not being able to help in their previous rescue mission. Although Whirl, Hoist, and Medics also showed up late, and you don't see them moping around.
We're all still getting acquainted to our new multi-cog vehicles, so it's okay that Wedge hasn't mastered speed driving yet.
This is why I chose to post this episode review first. As we know from the previous first half of Season 2, the episodes weren't always aired in the correct chronological order. TFWiki even lists this one as one of the last episodes in the series. Yet they refer to their new Multi-Cog Alt Modes as new. So I think that this episode fits better to when they actually got their new forms, thus why I'm reviewing it now. You know, there's something in this episode that I'm surprised it took me this long to realize. When we see Hotshot leaning against the lockers, we see there are 5 behind him, just like the number of recruits we have. But there's also another 5 across the hall from him. And when he's walking with Bumblebee, we see even more lockers. The way I see it, there's at least 30 lockers in this hallway alone, not to mention the other hallways in the academy. So why do they need all these lockers for only 5 recruits? And from what we see, these lockers have drawings, notes, photos, and other stuff on them. So they're obviously owned by someone, right? What if there are actually way more students at the academy than just the 5 that we always see? What if it's like Saved by the Bell, or Boy Meets World, or whatever other show about kids in school that isn't from the 90s, because I'm starting to date myself here? Sure, in those shows they could afford to pay extras to hang out in the background, but maybe in this show they couldn't afford to design and animate a bunch of generic recruits to fill the background. Maybe there's been other kids at this academy this whole time. I mean, after all, there are what, 6 or 7 teachers here? Heatwave, Chase, Boulder, Blades, Grimlock, Bumblebee, and Perceptor. Oh, and Ratchet. I almost forgot Ratchet. So there's 8. 8 teachers at this academy for only 5 students? That seems like a lot. And we rarely see many of the teachers together. What if they're off teaching other recruits while we're watching the main 5 here? Just a thought. So Bumblebee gets Hotshot to try and teach Wedge all about speed. After all, it is his middle name.
We need speed? It's my middle name.
Red,
Mirrors clear,
yellow,
seat comfortable.
green, go!
Seat comfortable? Why are you concerned with how comfortable your seats are? You're not sitting in your own seats. It'd be like if a human had to check their kidneys before going for a walk.
Did you run out of spark?
Obviously not. If he ran out of spark, he'd be dead. I'm starting to think that whoever wrote this episode wasn't totally up on their Transformers lore. A spark is like the Transformers' brain, soul, and heart all in one. Without their spark, a Transformer doesn't exist. So Wedge chickens out before he even attempts the big loop.
What's wrong?
The horrifying thought of driving upside down?
Now, I would think that this would be more about Wedge's fear of heights. And of course, being up in the air upside down like that would play into that fear. But Wedge never mentions his fear of heights here.
You could try putting your foot down for a start.
Again, this phrase doesn't really make sense as Transformers. Wedge doesn't use his feet to press his own gas pedal. He can't. His feet are part of his car mode when he's transformed. I think a better phrasing would have been something like put the pedal to the metal, or try flooring it. It is weird how Wedge says he'll never do all this fast car stuff, which, as we'll learn by the end of the episode, basically means he'll never be like Bumblebee. You know, his hero, his mentor, the whole reason why he chose his new car mode. Once again, I'm surprised that none of this factors into motivating Wedge to keep working on these speed stunts. You'd think that all Hotshot would have to do in order to get Wedge to try again would be to say that if you want to be like Bumblebee, you need to drive like Bumblebee. And if Wedge responds that maybe he isn't supposed to be like Bumblebee, maybe he could have reflected on himself and seen that he doesn't need to be exactly like Bumblebee like he did in the episode Trick or Treat. Although I guess that would kind of defeat the purpose of this episode, which I guess was to make Hotshot a better teacher? Even though he's not a teacher, he's a student? I wonder if that's what they were hinting at in the episode Multi-Change of Pace, when they were saying that Hotshot wasn't reaching his full potential. Maybe they're hoping that Hotshot will stay and become a teacher when he graduates from the academy. Which is probably why Bumblebee got him to teach Wedge instead of him just teaching Wedge himself, because he knows that Wedge would just do whatever he tells him. So Bumblebee schools Hotshot, and he learns that he was more so just showing off and not really doing a good job teaching Wedge. And with the help of the other recruits, they create a new addition to the track, and Hotshot gets Wedge back on the track for another try. This time, instead of being competitive and showing off, Hotshot takes more of a cooperative and encouraging direction to his coaching. And of course, with any good denouement, Wedge successfully pulls off the loop and is now confident in his driving ability. This was an interesting episode. I kind of want to say that it was a bad one, as I don't think the writer had a solid grasp on Cybertronian anatomy and terminology, and I think they could have done a better job tying Wedge's existing character traits into this episode, like Wedge's fear of heights factoring into him not wanting to do the loop, and Wedge's desire to be like his idol Bumblebee either motivating him to try harder, or demotivating him when he realizes that even with a similar vehicle mode, he still doesn't measure up to his hero. On the other hand, I wonder if my theory is correct and that the senior rescue bots are grooming Hotshot to stay and become a teacher at the end of the series. But I guess we'll just have to keep watching in order to see if that turns out to be the case. As always, let me know what you thought of this episode down in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and do all that other fun stuff, and I'll see you next time for another Transformers Rescue Bots Academy episode review.